يقيمه مركز دراسات وابحاث المرأة بكلية العلوم الإجتماعية في جامعة الكويت. حضورنا الكريم، إن جل ما نبدأ به حفلنا آيات عطرة من الذكر الحكيم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
في حين لا تزال هناك العديد من التحديات، فإن بعض البلدان اتخذت خطوات لتعزيز المساواة بين الجنسين وتمكين المرأة في المنطقة، وإن تجربة دولة الكويت يشاد بها في إطار سياسات خطة التنمية التي تهدف إلى تحسين أداء المرأة الكويتية في جميع القطاعات الاجتماعية والسياسية والاقتصادية. نطلب من وزيرة الدولة للشؤون الاقتصادية معالي السيدة مريم عقيل العقيل أن تتفضل لإلقاء كلمتها.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. سمو الشيخ الدكتورة شمة بنت محمد بن خالد آل نهيان، رئيس مجلس إدارة مؤسسات الشيخ محمد بن خالد آل نهيان الثقافية والتعليمية، الأخ الفاضل الدكتور الأستاذ الدكتور حسين الأنصاري مدير عام جامعة الكويت، الأخت الفاضلة الدكتورة لبنى القاضي رئيس مركز ابحاث ودراسات المرأة في جامعة الكويت، السيد معز دريد المدير الإقليمي بالإنابة لهيئة الأمم المتحدة للمرأة في الدول العربية. الحضور الكريم، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يطيب لي أن أرحب بكم في بلدكم الثاني الكويت للمشاركة في فعاليات هذا المؤتمر، متمنية لكم طيب الإقامة ولمؤتمركم كل التوفيق لتحقيق ما نصب إليه من أهداف تصب في صالح دعم دولة الكويت نحو تنفيذ الهدف الخامس من أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وإطلاق تغييرات طويلة المدى تمكنها من تحقيق الأهداف الطموحة لأجندة تمكين المرأة في ظل أهداف التنمية المستدامة وتعزيز دورها البارز وجهودها على الصعيدين الوطني والإقليمي. الحضور الكريم، ينعقد هذا المؤتمر للسنة التاسعة على التوالي على المستوى الوطني وللمرأة، وللمرة الأولى على المستوى الإقليمي ضمن إطار التعاون الوطني بتنفيذ مشروع دعم دولة الكويت في تنفيذ الهدف الخامس من أهداف التنمية المستدامة بشأن المساواة بين الجنسين، والذي تقوده الأمانة العامة للمجلس الأعلى للتخطيط والتنمية بالتعاون مع مركز دراسات وابحاث المرأة في جامعة الكويت وبرنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي وهيئة الأمم المتحدة للمساواة بين الجنسين وتمكين المرأة. ويأتي هذا المشروع انطلاقا من رؤية سيدي حضرة صاحب السمو أمير البلاد المفدى الشيخ صباح أحمد الجابر الصباح حفظه الله ورعاه، 35 وخطة التنمية الخاصة بدولة الكويت كويت جديدة. ويقدم المشروع منهاج عمل مبتكر لتعزيز الكوادر المحلية والمؤسسات لتنفيذ أجندة 2030، وبالأخص ما يتعلق بالهدف الخامس من أهداف التنمية المستدامة بشأن المساواة بين الجنسين، كما يركز على تطبيق مؤشرات الهدف الخامس بما يتناسب مع السياق الوطني، والتي تم تحديدها من خلال عدد من المشاورات المتعددة للوصول إلى تحقيق الهدف الخامس بحلول العام 2030. ويعتبر هذا المشروع والأول من نوعه في العالم العربي في العمل للإسراع في تنفيذ هذا الهدف على المستوى الوطني، مما يعكس التزام دولة الكويت الكامل بتحقيق المساواة بين الجنسين وتمكين المرأة بما يتوافق مع الالتزامات الدولية والقانونية لتحقيق أجندة 2030. الحضور الكريم، أفتخر أن أقتبس لكم ما نصت عليه المادة 29 من دستور دولة الكويت الصادر في 11/11/1962، أي قبل 57 عاما من اليوم، على أن الناس سواسية في الكرامة الإنسانية، وهم متساوون لدى القانون في الحقوق والواجبات العامة، لا تمييز بينهم في ذلك بسبب الجنس أو الأصل أو اللغة أو الدين. فكانت هذه المادة النبراس والطريق للدولة ومؤسساتها في العمل الدؤوب لدعم نجاح المرأة وتمهيد الطريق لها للحصول على العديد من الحقوق المالية والتجارية والاجتماعية، وتمتعها في الحصول على كافة الخدمات بمختلف أنواعها. واستمرارا لذلك دعمت الكويت تمكين المرأة الكويتية، فحقق مشروع دعم الدولة لتنفيذ الهدف الخامس من أهداف التنمية المستدامة لتمكين المرأة الكويتية نجاحات في مجالات عدة، منها المجال السياسي والاقتصادي والحد من العنف ضدها، بالإضافة إلى الجهود المبذولة لإشراك المؤسسات الأكاديمية لتنفيذ هذه الأجندة، بما يوفر فرص لتعزيز مشاركة الشباب والشابات الذين يعدون قادة المستقبل بهدف إيصال صوتهم دعما للتطوير الاستراتيجية لتنفيذ الهدف الخامس من أهداف هذه التنمية، والاستجابة لاحتياجات وطموحات الشباب والشابات ليكونوا شركاء في صنع القرار ووضع السياسات والاستفادة من خبرات من سبقوهم في هذا المجال وعملوا لسنوات طويلة. وبالرغم من حصول النساء الكويتيات على حقوقهن السياسية كناخبات ومرشحات منذ عام 2005، إلا أن فرص ترشح النساء يواجهها المعتقدات الاجتماعية التي تحابي وصول الرجال إلى مناصب رفيعة، بما دفع المشروع لعقد سلسلة من الورش المتخصصة بتطوير مهارات قيادية لعدد من المرشحات المستقبليات. وسيدعم المشروع خلال العام الجاري 2019 إنشاء حاضنة سياسية في جامعة الكويت لتعزيز المهارات وتبادل الخبرات بالتعاون مع البرلمانيات في المنطقة للإسراع في تعزيز مشاركة المرأة في المجال السياسي. إن مشاركة النساء في القوى العاملة في الكويت تعتبر من أعلى النسب في المنطقة، إلا أن النساء يواجهن قلة التمثيل في المناصب العليا في القطاعين العام والخاص، حيث تبلغ نسبة النساء في شغل المناصب القيادية في القطاع الحكومي 13%، بينما تبلغ في القطاع الخاص 15%. هذا وتقوم حكومة دولة الكويت من خلال المشروع بالإعلان عن التزامها الكامل في دعم وصول المرأة إلى مناصب قيادية في المجال الاقتصادي من خلال تشجيع الشركات على توقيع وتأييد المبادئ المعنية بتمكين المرأة، حيث تأتي هذه المبادئ كمبادرة من قبل هيئة الأمم المتحدة للمرأة والاتفاق العالمي للأمم المتحدة لتدريب الشركات على تطوير خطط عمل لتنفيذ هذه المبادئ العالمية. إحدى النتائج المهمة للمشروع هو زيادة عدد الشركات الكويتية الموقعة على المبادئ المعنية بتمكين المرأة بمقدار 3 أضعاف عددها منذ بداية المشروع، متضمنة شركات كبرى في القطاع الخاص. وختاما، أجدد الترحيب بكم جميعا في بلدكم الثاني الكويت، راجية من المولى عز وجل أن يحقق لهذا المؤتمر الأهداف المرجوة منه، والاستفادة من تجارب المشاركين في دعم المشاركة السياسية للمرأة وتسريع وتيرة تنفيذ أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وبخاصة الهدف الخامس بشأن المساواة بين الجنسين مواكبة للمؤشرات الدولية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
تتمثل الأهداف الرئيسية للمؤتمر في مناقشة الدروس المستفادة وعناصر النجاح الرئيسية وتحديد الحلول في سبيل تحقيق المساواة بين الجنسين وتمكين المرأة على المستوى الإقليمي. ومع كلمة الدكتورة لبنى القاضي رئيسة مركز دراسات وابحاث المرأة في جامعة الكويت.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بعد استعراض معالي الوزيرة أنا راح أختصر في ترحيب الحضور. معالي السيدة مريم عقيل العقيل وزير الدولة للشؤون الاقتصادية، أستاذ الدكتور حسين الأنصاري، أستاذ الدكتور حمود القشعان، سمو الشيخة دكتورة شمة بنت محمد بن خالد آل نهيان، نائب مدير البرنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي للدول العربية السيدة سيرا بول، سيد معز دريد مدير الإقليمي لهيئة الأمم المتحدة للمرأة في الدول العربية، سيدة كارين جرون المدير الأول لمجموعة حلول العالمية للبنك الدولي، الدكتور رميش رامتشندران رئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة الكويت، السيدة إيمان الروضان الرئيس التنفيذي لزين الكويت، ضيوفنا من الخارج ومساندينا من دولة الكويت، الدكتور خالد مهدي من أول من ساندنا من الأمانة. اليوم حنا في سدد معرفة ما هي التحديات أمام المرأة لتنفيذ هدف الخامس من التنمية المستدامة. التنمية الحقيقية ما تتم إلا عن طريق المشاركة، واندماج المرأة خطوة رئيسية في هذا المؤتمر. هناك دول عربية مختلفة. الآن احنا قررنا 5 سنوات من ما وقعنا على هدف أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وهدف الخامس من المهمين لأن هذا يدمج أو يشارك المرأة في تنمية كل دولة، ليس فقط لمصلحة المرأة لكن لمصلحة المجتمع. تقارير البنك الدولي تبين أن المرأة لا شاركت بالتنمية بدون تمييز داخل القومي للدولة أيضا يزيد. حنا في هذا المؤتمر راح نناقش ما هي الإنجازات اللي تمت على الصعيد الإقليمي، ما هي التحديات اللي تواجهنا، لأن احنا ما نتكلم فقط عن المجال السياسي، هذا مهم لأن السياسات تخرج من المجالس السياسية، لكن أيضا في المجال الاقتصادي ضروري أن المرأة تكون في مجلس الإدارة في صنع القرار. وهنا معانا اليوم شركتين اللي هم يؤمنون في هذا، في دمج المرأة، شركة زين وشركة الكويت. أيضا هناك قوانين فيها التمييز، ولابد أن احنا في هذه ال3 أيام نتكلم عن التحديات تواجه المرأة في تقدم. في بعض الدول ممكن نستفيد من تجربتهم. السعودية صدرت قانون لحماية المرأة من العنف. الكويت لا زالت مشروع بقانون، فهناك تقدم في بعض الدول وهناك أيضا تحديات في بعض الدول. حنا الدولة دعمت هذا الهدف الخامس، لكن لا زلنا مثل ما ذكرت معالي الوزيرة الطريق طويل، لكن حنا نعمل معا مع الرجل، لأن أيضا الرجال يؤمنون أن المرأة شريكة اللي ممكن تفيد الدولة، لأن اندماج المرأة هو التنمية الحقيقية. ففي هذه 3 أيام إن شاء الله نخرج من حلول، من معرفة طريق اللي راح المرأة في الصعيد الإقليمي تستمر فيه، دعم المرأة دائما نشف الريج. فإحنا إن شاء الله في هذا 3 أيام راح نطلع على أن نعمل في كشراكة، لأن ما في دولة عربية ممكن تعمل لوحدها. إحنا نحتاج نتعلم من بعض، ندعم بعض، ولا نحقق هذا بدون دعم الرجل. فهذا المؤتمر مؤتمر المجتمع وليس المرأة فقط. أشكر شركة زين وشركة كويت لدعم هذا المؤتمر، لأن هذا المؤتمر ليس مثل ما قلت للمرأة، لكن القطاع الخاص شريك دائم، لأن هم فعلا القطاع الإنتاجي. يعني الحكومة نقدم خدمات ونعمل أشياء، لكن بدون القطاع الخاص ما راح نحقق تنمية مستدامة. ونشكر شركة زين وشركة كويت في هذا الشيء. حنا اليوم عندنا أيضا جهات أممية راح تتكلم عن أهمية اندماج المرأة، فأنا ما أبي أخذ من وقتهم لأن أدري معالي الوزيرة وراها التزامات، وفعلا رغم هذا خلت وقت بسيط لنا. فأشكركم لاستماعكم وأشكركم لحضوركم.
أغلب الدول العربية بدأت بتطبيق الهدف الخامس من أهداف الأمم المتحدة حول التنمية المستدامة، وهذا المؤتمر في دولة الكويت يأتي استجابة لدور الدولة البارز في تنفيذ هذا الهدف وما يتضمنه من تمكين للمرأة. ومع كلمة السيدة سارة بول، نائب مدير برنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي للدول العربية.
Your Excellency, Mrs. Madam Akil Al-Akil, the Minister for Economic Affairs, Her Highness Dr. Sheikha Shama bint Mohammed bin Khalid Al Nahyan, the Chairperson of Sheikh Mohammed bin Khalid Al Nahyan Cultural Center of the United Arab Emirates, Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is such a great pleasure for me to be with you here today in Kuwait and to join together in your discussions on achieving gender equality and very much the focus on empowering women and girls across the Arab states region. And in particular, to find ways to explore together how the international community can support partnerships and stronger progress on the ground for SDG 5, gender equality. At the outset, I would first like to acknowledge Her Excellency Minister Maryam Al-Akil and Dr. Luna Al-Qazi for being such inspirational leaders for women's empowerment. Let me also take this opportunity to recognize Kuwait for its very important efforts and the progress it has made towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, which was widely acknowledged during the high-level political forum on sustainable development earlier this year at the United Nations headquarters in New York. Dr. Khalid Mahdi, the Secretary General of the Supreme Council for Planning and Development, led the delegation team, bringing together government, private sector, and civil society representatives to present the country's voluntary national report on the SDGs. Kuwait's presentation attested to a very participatory and collective efforts, including, for example, for data collection and analysis towards sustainable human development for all. For us to join together with you as stakeholders from such a wide range of institutions, we see here today civil society, private sector, academics, government, youth groups, policymakers, regional and global development organizations, the World Bank, and colleagues from across the United Nations development system. Today's gathering is truly a reflection of our joint commitment, and only together can we support the change that we all know is needed towards progress in SDG 5. Excellencies, participants, I am visiting today from our United Nations Development Program Global Headquarters in New York, where I am serving as the Deputy Director of UNDP's work in the Arab States region. And I would like to bring to this conversation what we are seeing on the SDGs agenda at the regional and the global level. Recently, at the 74th United Nations General Assembly, the UN Secretary General highlighted that the 2030 agenda now is really and truly coming to life. We see that governments are integrating the goals into national development plans. Private sector is not only coming to understand that sustainable business is good business, but also reflecting that understanding in concrete action. Mayors, city officials, civil society, young people, entrepreneurs, innovators are stepping up and taking the action required to advance the SDGs. And we see that the commitment to the 2030 agenda is stronger than ever, and the world is making progress. But as the Secretary General also made clear, we are far from where we need to be. We are off track, simply put, to achieve the ambition in this ambitious 2030 agenda in the next decade. Across the SDGs spectrum, we see that progress is uneven. This is especially the case when it comes to SDG 5, which we know is absolutely central and critical for the achievement of all of the 17 SDGs. We know well that around the world, progress is being achieved. Women are stepping up as leaders. Education rates for women are higher than ever, and more girls are growing up with confidence in their abilities. But at the same time, no country is on track to meet the goal of gender equality, without which none of the other SDGs will be met. As UNDP, together with our partners, we are absolutely committed to advancing gender equality, both within our own organization and, as importantly, more importantly, supporting this ambition in the region and the countries we serve. Here in the Arab States region, the women's empowerment agenda is central to our values, to our advocacy, programming, and policy support. Some of you may remember our seminal Arab Human Development Report from the year 2002, authored by scholars from the region, which called for the advancement of women as one of the 3 pillars that would drive a renaissance across the region. And while today the region is faced by a range of challenges, especially in crisis contexts, it is often the progress on the women's empowerment agenda which gives us hope as practitioners, advocates, and partners. Looking at today's agenda and the agenda which you will be focusing on over these coming days, let me emphasize 3 areas that we view as absolutely critical to driving the SDG 5 forward. The first is the issue of women's economic empowerment, which lags behind in the region and yet is so absolutely essential to progress in every area of life. We are working together with our local and national and international partners to support women's economic empowerment across the region, both in relatively traditional sectors and approaches, and also increasingly in pursuit of innovative approaches, for example, using behavioral insights through which new solutions to old problems are being identified. The second is the issue of political participation. With our partners, we have been providing support for women's political participation across the region, including in countries where we have seen that temporary special measures, such as quotas, have truly made a difference. But we also see that there are other issues, for example, making elections and participation to have participated in the recent launch of a new regional network of women in elections. And the third is the issue of gender justice. We have been working hand in hand with our national partners, including governments, civil society, along with UN Women, UNFPA, and ESQA, to put together an updated, comprehensive benchmarking of laws and policies affecting gender equality and protection against gender-based violence in countries across the region. In this work, we see that it is vital that we are responsive to national context and to listen together with all of our partners. We place special emphasis on women, peace, and security agenda, including Security Council Resolution 1325, with a special focus on women and girls who are disproportionately bearing the brunt of conflict and who must play at least a proportional role in peace building and recovery. Excellencies, participants, colleagues, we are at a crossroads whereby accelerated action is needed to achieve the SDGs by 2030. 2030 is almost just a decade away, and this is the time to redouble our efforts to deepen impact, especially in the area of women's empowerment. This is why we are so pleased to be participating in a regional dialogue such as the one taking place today. It's an opportunity to take local lessons, national experiences, and feed those into national, regional, and global policy discussions. This happens best when we work closely with partners, supporting broad coalitions of stakeholders drawn together in a common cause and motivated by a sense of urgency. Today's discussions in the conference reflects an opportunity for all of us to come together more effectively to support major changes that we can implement together in our different spheres, but pushing for the same objective. I am looking forward to the outcomes of these discussions with optimism for the road ahead for women's empowerment and gender equality in the Arab States region. Thank you.
لقد أثبتت التجارب مرارا وتكرارا أن تمكين النساء والفتيات له آثار مضاعفة في المجتمع، فهي نصف المجتمع وهي الشريك في الأسرة والسياسة والاقتصاد والتنمية. والآن نرحب بالسيد معز دوريد، المدير الإقليمي بالنيابة لهيئة الأمم المتحدة للمرأة في الدول العربية.
صباح الخير. Excellency Mrs. Maryam Aqil Al-Aqil, Minister of State for Economic Affairs. Her Royal Highness Dr. Sheikha Shama bint Mohammed Al-Nahyan, Excellency Dr. Khalid Mahdi, Secretary General of the General Secretariat of the Supreme Council for Planning and Development, Professor Hussein Al-Ansari, President of the University of Kuwait, Dr. Lubna Al-Qazi, Director of the Women's Research and Studies Center of the University of Kuwait, and my dear sisters from sister agencies Dr. Karen Brown from the World Bank, and Sarah Poole from UNDP, Dr. Ramesh Ramachandran, Kuwait President and CEO. Good morning to you all. I'm delighted to join you today for the inauguration of the 9th Kuwait Women's Forum. It is to discuss the achievements and challenges facing Arab women. I'm delighted because of your eminent participation. I'm delighted because of the substance of the forum, but I'm also very much delighted to return to beloved Kuwait. I've had the honor to serve here as UN resident coordinator nearly 15 years ago, and I'm really pleased to be back and see all the progress. As UN Women, we are proud to have the opportunity to partner with the General Secretariat of the Supreme Council for Planning and Development, with the Kuwait Women's Studies and Research Center of this Kuwait University, and of course with UNDP, on the joint program to accelerate the implementation of Sustainable Development Goal 5 in the state of Kuwait. And this was the first joint initiative in all of the Arab states region to specifically address SDG 5 as a priority sustainable development goal. It is a testament not only to Kuwait's commitment to women's empowerment, but also to Kuwait's appreciation of the critical importance of gender equality as a key determinant of success for the implementation of all of Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. On behalf of UN Women, I express our high esteem for the leadership of Her Excellency Minister Mariam Aqil Al-Aqil on the SDG 5 initiative. I would also like to acknowledge the guidance of Dr. Khalid Mahdi in ensuring the alignment of SDG 5 program to the priorities of the Kuwait National Development Plan. And of course, the technical spearheading of Dr. Lubna Al-Qazi is very much acknowledged and appreciated. The innovations of that program across its 3 pillars of women's political participation and leadership, women's economic empowerment, and the analysis of behaviors and attitudes that precipitate discrimination, including in the family setting, have also led to the convening of this regional forum to take stock of achievements made and the remaining challenges. I'm very pleased to see that the forum's agenda addresses key challenges, gaps, and areas where collectively and with national leadership we need to improve. I hope that discussions will enable us to collectively identify how we can strengthen women's participation in public leadership with the real impact on decision-making. Minister Al-Aqil is a model to be emulated. We should also look at how to enhance our data capacities for better policy making that provides effective solutions, and to work with the public and private sectors to improve all women's opportunities to access a decent livelihood that not only helps economies to grow and helps families to thrive, but that enable women to live in dignity. We have to acknowledge that in our Arab region, women's labor force participation is still the lowest among all regions of the world. And this level has persisted for nearly 3 decades. As a UN agency, UN Women is, with partners, tasked with the primary responsibility to support the implementation of SDG 5. We have an important role to play, but we are only one part of a partnership well represented today. And by joining forces with governments, academia, civil society, and the private sector, we can together achieve lasting results. In this regard, I would like to also acknowledge the efforts of the State of Kuwait to engage stakeholder groups so as to ensure an inclusive approach to SDG 5 implementation, which we know is crucial to lasting impact to sustainability. This forum comes at a significant time as we approach a number of milestones for gender equality. The year 2020 is the year for milestones for gender equality, and it's an opportunity to leverage this nationally, regionally, and globally. For example, next month, as we approach the year 2020, is the 40th anniversary of the adoption by the UN General Assembly of the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Moving on to 2020, you are aware we will celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the most comprehensive plan ever concluded for realizing women's rights, and it aims to support the promotion and protection of the rights enshrined in CEDAW by elaborating strategic action that states have approved and adopted. Following the national and regional review of implementation of the Beijing platform, which is taking place this year, UN Women will support the Commission on the Status of Women in March coming year to issue a global declaration. And also in 2020, we are celebrating the 25th anniversary. With celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Platform of Action, we are launching as UN Women a campaign realizing women's rights for an equal future. And this campaign is built on the realization that this generation is the generation where, for the first time in history, can achieve gender equality. Achieving gender equality is finally within our sights. And in 2020, the governments of Mexico and France will convene two global fora, bringing together civil society, private sector, technical experts, and the heads of government to review progress made and the challenges faced in implementing the Beijing agenda. Regional initiatives such as this one, the Kuwait's Women's Forum, can feed into the multi-sectoral dialogue of generational equality. 2020 will also mark the 20th anniversary of the Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security. I mention in particular this anniversary because I am moved by the generous commitment of the State of Kuwait to support humanitarian and peace-building efforts in this region and beyond. This is according to the enlightened vision of international solidarity of His Highness Sheikh Sabah al-Ahmad al-Jabir al-Sabah, Emir of the State of Kuwait, and the global humanitarian leader. We know that women often bear the brunt of devastating conflicts. Kuwait is to be commended for its support for some of the most vulnerable women, men, girls, and boys in our region. I may add to this list of global milestones our 10th birthday as UN Women, because in 2020, UN Women will be celebrating the 10th anniversary of its establishment back in 2010. And we continue to work globally and in this region to learn from the experience of governments, technical experts, and activists such as yourselves, so that we can provide the best possible support to stakeholders to make gender equality and the empowerment by the year 2030. Thank you very much.
يؤكد الباحثون في المجال أنه لا يمكن تحقيق المزيد من المساواة دون تعزيز السياسات والتشريعات التي تشجع على تقلد النساء للمناصب القيادية. يسعدنا أن نرحب بالسيدة كارين جرون، المدير الأول مجموعة الحلول العالمية المشتركة المعنية بالمساواة بين الجنسين في البنك الدولي.
Thank you very much for letting me be here today, and thank you for your gracious hospitality. I'd like first to recognize Her Excellency Miriam Al-Akil, the State Minister for Economic Affairs. And I'd like also to congratulate you on your acting appointment as Minister of Finance, which I think is phenomenal. And I'd like to personally invite you to join the World Bank Group's community of practice of finance ministers for gender equality, and we hope to welcome you at our spring meetings in Washington, D.C. next April. So I hope you'll join us. I'd like also to thank Dr. Khaled Mahdi, Secretary General of the Supreme Council for Planning and Development, Dr. Hussein Ansari, President of Kuwait University, and of course Dr. Lubna Al-Kazi, who is the head of the Women's Research Council. And I'd like to thank and welcome everybody else who is here in this room. I'd like to start first by commending Kuwait. I think that you have made some incredible progress and really inspirational for others in the region. It's well recognized that Kuwaiti women have been pioneers in many of the intellectual fields in this country, and you've had a voice throughout your regional history. You represent major institutions, the first Arab female, for instance, to lead a university, Kuwait University, and serving as editors and participating in public life. And I'd also like to commend Kuwait for the National Development Plan, which I think holds absolutely great progress to realize SDG 5 and the economic and development goals of the country. So the World Bank is pleased to partner very much with you in this effort. This 9th conference, as Moaz has said, I think comes at a very opportune time. There are many exciting changes happening in this region, focused on women's economic empowerment, even in the face of the backdrop of fragility and conflict that exists in some countries. And I have to say that it's an opportune time because of the partnerships that are developing, the partnerships between governments, civil society, the private sector in particular, and international organizations, all of whom have a key role, not just in the discourse towards women's economic empowerment, but also in the agenda to make it happen. This is a very heterogeneous region with countries that range from about 1.6 to 100 million people, and per capita incomes that range from less than $1,000 to more than $60,000. And of course, there's no one size fits all, but women's economic empowerment is a key pillar for any change and progress going forward. We all know that women are equal just because they are equal, but there's a building economic case that shows that investments in the economic power of women has huge payoffs for themselves, for men in their families, for children in their families, and for whole countries. And I'll talk a little bit about that. I don't want to spend a lot of time going through all of the trends because I'm sure all of you know better than I the trends in the region. But I want to spend my time focusing on a few areas where there has been progress, but where momentum can be accelerated, with some thoughts on how to accelerate progress. And these are areas of employment and entrepreneurship, and access to finance. And I focus on these because these are the areas where the gender gaps are still acute. The region has made enormous progress in areas of health and education. To do foundations for women's economic empowerment. But the gains that women have made relative to men have not translated in terms of economic power. The first issue is employment. As many people here know, and as Moaz has said, the Middle East and North Africa has the lowest female labor force participation in the world, just about 21% in 2018 compared to 74% for men. And unemployment among women is more severe than among men. Unfortunately, the gender pay gap in MENA is one of the world's highest, at about 40%. And wage discrimination against women in the private sector is one reason that many people find employment in the public sector to be so attractive. And while there are variations from country to country, all countries have a gap to the detriment of females. And this is despite the rising educational attainment of young women reaching working age, who are actually exceeding the educational levels of young men. It's what's known as the MENA paradox, which many of you know. Historically, countries like France, Japan, Norway, China, Chile have realized the power of women entering the labor force. They've all benefited greatly in terms of wealth creation and a sense of shared opportunities, helping women participate in the labor market and reviving also the educational motivation and attainment of men, an agenda that we cannot forget. Gender is about women and men. It's going to be important in terms of growth and shared prosperity. The changes that have happened in labor force participation often come in the heels of big social movements, not unlike those that happened in 2011 at the onset of the Arab Spring, and today in countries like Algeria, Egypt, and Sudan. In all of these countries, men and women demonstrate together, hand in hand, for more social and economic freedom. A second pillar of women's economic empowerment is entrepreneurship. And I focus on this because entrepreneurship is one of the keys to growth. And it's particularly the small and medium enterprise sector that's key to creating jobs in the economy. The gender gap between males and females in this region vary, but on average, female participation in firm ownership is only 23%, which is very low compared to other regions. And a rate of female top managers of firms is only 4% in the MENA region, the non-high income countries. So there's significant scope for improving women's participation in businesses. A recent study by our International Finance Corporation notes that the MENA region has the second highest female micro-enterprise financing gap at 29%, which is $16 billion gap between the credit that female entrepreneurs in MENA need and the financing that they can receive. Trade finance is another issue for women in MENA, where 55% of women-led small and medium enterprises do not have access to the credit that they need to grow their businesses, and only 4% financial institutions to develop, start, and grow their businesses. So what do we do to actually accelerate labor force participation and entrepreneurship and access to finance? I'm going to mention three areas here. The first is laws. Laws are absolutely critical. And I want to commend the MENA region for the reforms that have been made in the last 10 years in laws. Reforms towards legal gender equality encourage more women to work. Our Women Business in the Law database, which collects information on legal economic discrimination against women in 190 countries, shows that for reforming economies, female labor force participation as a percentage of the total labor force increased by 0.7 percentage points. But for non-reforming economies, it only went up by 0.2 percentage points, a difference of about 0.5 percentage points. And this result signifies more women join the workforce overall in economies that are reforming towards gender equality. I have to say that between 2009 and 2018, The Women, Business, and the Law database captured 13 economies in this region that have enacted 19 reforms throughout 6 indicators: going places, getting married, starting a job, getting paid, having children, and getting a pension. So that means that about 68% of the economies in the Middle East and North Africa enacted reforms. And in the most recent data that we have collected, this region has made more legal changes than any other region around the world. So that's really to be commended. I want to highlight a few of the legislative changes that are critical. For instance, 8 economies have enacted legislation on domestic violence for the very first time, and 4 of those economies are in this region, and that's really important in terms of enabling men and women to work. Between 2017 and 2019, 7 economies enacted legal protections against sexual harassment in employment, and our work shows that when you reduce sexual harassment in employment, more women again participate in the labor force. 6 economies, 5 here in this region, as well as 1 in Latin America, have enacted legislation in the last 2 years against sexual harassment in the workplace. And many other countries are making other changes, for instance, in terms of property rights regimes, which enable women to accumulate assets like land and housing. And then, of course, there's a set of reforms on employment, like enacting paid parental legislation, not just maternity legislation, but parental legislation. In fact, paid parental legislation is even more important than maternity leave to enable women to work. And I have to say that many of these reforms have been supported by the work of the specialized councils and governments that are really committed to improving gender balance. But changing laws is just a first step. It's also important to have other enablers. And I want to talk here about the enabler of the private sector. And I'm really thrilled that we have some CEOs in this audience. I want to particularly mention that companies can have a lead role to play. There are many things, in fact, that companies can do that are far ahead of governments in terms of promoting women to their corporate boards, their senior management, having the right enabling policies for women in the workplace, having the right type of policies to enable women entrepreneurs to participate in their supply chains, and to have the products and services, finance, for instance, and insurance, to help women protect the assets that they accumulate. The one trend that I think is particularly important for this region is focusing on digital technology can help to develop platforms that not only provide new offerings on education, transport, and access to finance, which is really important for entrepreneurship and female labor force participation, but it enables more flexible work from any location, including in regions that lack job opportunities. But in this region, the digital economy is young, and young people in particular face obstacles to put technology to productive use. We need to create in this region a more widespread modern broadband internet that covers all regions, including those that are lagging economically. And here I want to point out that there's really interesting models from other parts of the world, including in India, where internet access was offered free for a short term to enhance its beneficial economic and job-creating efforts. There's many other things that governments can do, and here I am speaking to the governments through tax issues, tax laws and subsidies to encourage business and consumers to adopt digital financial services. In fact, one of the things that we have discovered in our work with the Findex database and the enterprise database at the bank is that when more women have access to mobile finance, whether it's through mobile phones or internet or other things, they are, one, more productive, more likely to enter the labor force, more likely to earn income for their families. And there's many things that help women access finance, including digitizing wage payments, digitizing social protection services, and government-to-payment person changes. All of these have a huge win-win, but most particularly for women. So there's a lot to learn, and I'm really excited about the discussions over the next few days to talk about that. Also on the private sector, one last thing that I have to say is it's really important to know your customer. One of the things that we're discovering at the IFC is that many companies don't sex disaggregate their data. And if you don't segregate your data, you don't know who your market is. So one of the things that we've been working on is helping companies to set up MI customers that they can better target their products and services. And governments have a role to play in data as well, through household surveys, through labor force surveys, and through enterprise surveys. And this is one region where I think the data agenda is particularly important, and we can accelerate progress. We can put all of these enablers in place. We can put technology in place, we can put laws in place, we can put data in place, but the most important thing is people's take-up, and that involves social norms. And this is the last thing that I do want to mention. Social norms seem very difficult and intractable to change. Social norms about what's appropriate for men, what's appropriate for women, in terms of what's balancing work life and home life, and participating in different fields of study. But I have to say that there's a lot of work, and others have mentioned this, using behavioral science to help change norms. And I want to mention a study that I found very interesting recently that came out of Saudi Arabia, that found that the vast majority of young married men actually privately support women, their wives included, working outside the home. But they underestimate how many other men agree with them. So some researchers actually did an experiment. They let other men know that other men agreed with their private views on women being able to work outside the home. Just by telling men that other men did not hold a traditional norm led to real changes. 4 months after the study was conducted, the women in those households that were studied were more likely than other women to actually have applied for work outside the home. And this is really telling to us. I was just at a forum on edutainment about using things like serials and soap operas and all kinds of media, social media, that the young people use to change norms. And there's been incredible success in other parts of the world in using edutainment to change harmful norms like missing women, the fact that girls are aborted or killed at infancy because of son preference, or norms even of female genital cutting. And there's some fantastic work that's going on around the world in countries like China and Georgia that I think we can draw upon to do that. The last thing I want to say is that this is an agenda for men. And I really appreciate those men who are champions for change, recognizing that the progress to women's economic empowerment is not a zero-sum game, but actually raises the pie for everyone. It is a whole of society effort. So I want to conclude by saying, as we think about our partnerships that we will be developing between the public and the private sector, between civil societies and governments, but between men and women, this is the moment. And this is the moment to roll up our sleeves and get to work. Thank you very much.
تمكين المرأة في قطاع الاقتصاد والأعمال هو خطوة ضرورية تخاطب حاجة واقع التنمية الاقتصادية التي تتطلب مساهمة كل أفراد المجتمع في تسيير عجلة الإنتاج وتحقيق التنمية الاقتصادية المستدامة. والآن مع إحدى أبرز الشركات الموقعة على مبادئ تمكين المرأة، مع كلمة الدكتور راميش رامشندران، الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة إكويت للبتروكيماويات.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Distinguished Finance Minister Ms. Mariam Al-Akhil, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests from various organizations, with this, I feel woefully unqualified to address such an august gathering as a leader of one of the private sector companies in Kuwait, because I believe that those who have gone ahead of me are much more qualified and experienced to address this important topic. So let me start by deeply personalizing something. There are two important women in my life. A woman who has been with me for about 33 years, who is also my wife, and an 18-year-old daughter who is a freshman in the dorm in New Jersey. And those who are parents here with freshman students in the US, especially those who are staying in co-ed dorms, will recognize that the most interesting phone call happens when it is Saturday night there and Sunday morning here, and your daughter is not sure whether she wants to turn the video chat on or not. And that, in essence, summarizes the challenge of a father with a daughter on gender equality, because you're always thinking the worst when they only want to talk to you and they don't want to show you where they are. That, in essence, summarizes and brings home to us, whether you're in the private sector, in the public sector, whether you're a parent, on what the challenges are of gender equality, what we are willing to accept, and what still remains a challenge to us, whether you're male or female in today's society. This is my 7th tour of duty, in my 30 years of experience in the petrochemical world in a different country. Served quite a bit in the US, Canada, Europe, different countries of Asia, and now, of course, in the Middle East. And when it comes to women empowerment, I have to say that while there are some regional differences, the undercurrent themes in terms of challenges are pretty much the same. We are able to hire talented women in the private sector, but you always lose them mid-career. And companies are trying various policies, trying to encourage women to stay, but some of the most talented women are lost, I would say, in the late 30s, in the early 40s, because of personal challenges or because of choices that women make. The other challenges we have that people have talked about in terms of discrimination, mentorship and stuff like that, are much more easy to address through laws and policy. That we would like to learn from is what is it that the corporate sector can do to make sure we don't lose these women that we have invested so much in mid-career because of personal choices that they make. And it's a huge loss, because I can tell you our motives are not altruistic, like somebody mentioned here. Our motives are very selfish, because when you have a team which has some degree of gender equality, or where there are women in those teams are much more productive and they are much more successful. So for us as a company to succeed or to grow or to be more profitable, it is imperative that the teams that we staff in whichever function we choose, finance, commercial, engineering, strategy, HR, and public affairs, the presence of women actually enables these companies like ours to be more successful, and we see that in Kuwait. Unfortunately, we see clearly a distinguished increase in percentages in what I call the functional areas, notably HR, CCD, and public affairs, but less so in finance and engineering and in corporate leadership areas, because the women quit, which is a huge challenge for us. We at Equate, the leader of our Women's Empowered program, we have a program called Elevate. She's right here with us, Abir, who has enabled me to be able to focus on trying to see what we can do to continue to encourage women to stay in the company and grow. The one thing I can assure you is that, however controversial it is, quotas work. I know that's a controversial position for corporate executives to take, but setting a target of whatever the percentage needs to be, whether it's 25, 30, 40, or 50, if you set a target, people, even with differing views, find a way to meet it. And that is something that I have found to be successful in various parts of the world, including the Middle East. So that is something we should set. We should set a quota and see what we can do to get there. And the constant pushback you get on quotas is that, so then you will be staffing with people who may not be qualified. I can tell you that is grossly untrue. Usually it works, at least in the corporate sector. And in the event that a woman is unqualified or is not able to perform, it's quite okay to fire the woman. There's no law that says that, if a woman has to be successful in the corporate sector, right? So Equate has been very, very successful by embarking on these quotas, but we have definitely a long way to go, because a lot of the barriers that are self-created, including by parents such as me, have to be broken. But as I always say, it is easier to break a barrier when it erodes on its own because of social pressure and because of social embarrassment. If it is broken because of activism or because of laws or because of pressures, I can tell you people will find a way to erect those barriers again. So it's a long journey. We, of course, are here to learn and to listen and, of course, be a better company and serve Kuwait the best way we can. Yes, so good luck to the conference, and thanks again for the invitation.
أما الآن فليتفضل عميد كلية العلوم الإجتماعية الأستاذ الدكتور حمود القشعان لتكريم راعية الحفل معالي وزيرة الدولة للشؤون الاقتصادية. بعد تكريم معالي الوزيرة ننتقل لتكريم الجهات الداعمة للمؤتمر، ونبدأ مع الوزيرة هند صبيح الصبيح، فلتتفضل للمشاركة في التكريم. ليتفضل سعادة سفير دولة الإمارات العربية المتحدة باستلام التكريم بالإنابة عن سمو الشيخ الدكتورة شمة بنت محمد بنت خالد آل نهيان. الدكتور خالد مهدي الأمين العام للأمانة العامة للمجلس الأعلى للتخطيط والتنمية. السيدة سارة بول نائب مدير برنامج الأمم المتحدة الإنمائي للدول العربية. السيد معز دريد المدير الإقليمي بالنيابة لهيئة الأمم المتحدة للمرأة في الدول العربية. السيدة كارين برون المدير الأول مجموعة الحلول العالمية المشتركة المعنية بالمساواة بين الجنسين في البنك الدولي. الدكتور راميش راماشندران الرئيس التنفيذي لمجموعة إكويت. الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة زين الكويت.